Have you ever heard of a president who declared a war not on another country, but on poverty? A war where the enemy wasn't a government or an ideology, but hunger, illiteracy, and racial injustice. In the mid-1960s, President Lyndon B. Johnson, a man who grew up in rural Texas dirt poor, launched one of the most ambitious reform agendas in American history. Some people say it transformed America. Others swear it was a disaster. And even today, yes, 60 years later, people still argue about whether the Great Society saved lives or created new problems. This is the story of that dramatic experiment, a story of huge hopes, massive political battles, and programs that still shape your life, whether you realize it or not. So grab a seat, because we're about to dive into a chapter of history that proves one thing. Sometimes the biggest revolutions don't happen on battlefields, they happen in Congress. Before we jump into policies, you need to understand I'm the man behind them. Lyndon B. Johnson wasn't born into wealth, privilege, or glamour. In fact, his family struggled so much that teenage Lyndon once worked odd jobs just to keep food on the table. And here's the twist before politics. Johnson worked as a teacher in a Mexican-American school in Texas. Every day he watched children show up hungry, barefoot, and exhausted. Later, he said it was those faces, those stories, that burned into him a lifelong mission. No child in this country should be denied a chance because of poverty. After John F. Kennedy's assassination in November 1963, Johnson inherited the presidency. Instead of just maintaining Kennedy's legacy, he went full throttle, launching something far bigger than anyone expected. He called it the Great Society. And it wasn't just a slogan, it was a massive blueprint for reshaping America from the ground up. Johnson didn't waste time. In 1964, he announced a bold campaign, the War on Poverty. This wasn't symbolic. It came with real programs, real money, and real ambition. One of the first initiatives? Job Corps, a national training program to give unemployed young Americans real skills and a fighting chance at a career. Then came Head Start, launched in 1965. Its mission? Prepare low-income kids for school so they wouldn't fall behind before they even started. Another huge creation was the Economic Opportunity Act, which funded community action, agencies, local groups designed to fight poverty in ways tailored to each area. The goal wasn't just giving people money, it was giving them opportunity, education, and dignity. Of course, critics said Johnson was dreaming too big, but supporters argued, for the first time, America is fighting poverty with strategy, not charity. Here's where things get explosive. Johnson didn't just target poverty, he went after racial injustice, the wound that had divided America for centuries. In 1964, he pushed through the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed segregation in public places and banned discrimination in hiring. That alone could have defined a presidency, but Johnson wasn't done. A year later, after violent clashes in Selma, he delivered one of the most powerful speeches ever given by a U.S. president, ending with the words, "We shall overcome." He pushed Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act, enforcing the right to vote for African Americans in places where they were systematically blocked. This wasn't just politics, it was moral warfare, and it changed the nation's legal and social landscape permanently. Many historians argue that without Johnson's legislation, the civil rights progress of the late 20th century would have been impossible. You know what's wild? Two of the biggest pillars of American life today, Medicare and Medicaid, both came from the Great Society. Before 1965, millions of elderly Americans couldn't afford health care. Many went broke paying medical bills. Some simply avoided the doctor entirely. Johnson stepped in with a groundbreaking idea. Let the government guarantee health insurance for people C5 and older. That became Medicare. And for low-income families, he launched Medicaid, a lifeline for those who had no way to pay for medical care. Today, over 150 million Americans use these programs, love them or criticize them. They are the backbone of American healthcare, and they exist because Johnson believed a modern nation should protect its most vulnerable. The Great Society wasn't just about poverty and civil rights. Johnson aimed at something far bigger, improving the entire quality of American life. In 1965, he signed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, pouring massive federal funding into public schools, especially poor ones. This was a first in U.S. history. Then came immigration. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 blew up the old quota system that favored Europeans. It opened America's doors to Asia, Africa, and Latin America, reshaping the country's demographics forever. And yes, LBJ was also a pioneer of environmental policy before it became mainstream. He signed laws that protected air, water, and natural beauty. Imagine, this was decades before climate change was even a public conversation. It's like Johnson looked at every corner of American life and said, how can we make this better? But here's where the story takes a sharp twist. While Johnson was building the Great Society, he was also escalating the Vietnam War. The war drained billions of dollars, money that could have gone to his social programs. It split the country, and it destroyed Johnson's popularity. Critics claimed the Great Society made government too too big, too expensive, and too involved in people's lives. Others said it didn't go far enough. By the late 1960s urban riots, political polarization and war fatigue overshadowed Johnson's domestic achievements. In 1968, exhausted and unpopular, he made a shocking announcement. He would bond not to outrun for re-election. The Great Society didn't die, but its champion stepped off the stage. So, was the Great Society a success? Well, the answer depends on who you ask. Supporters point out that poverty rates fell dramatically from the mid-1960s to the early 1970s. Medicare and Medicaid still support millions. Civil rights laws changed the nation. Head Start continues to help children. Environmental reforms laid foundations for modern policy. Critics argue that some programs created dependency, wasted money, or didn't solve deeper issues. But here's one thing nobody debates. The Great Society fundamentally reshaped America. Its fingerprints are everywhere, from the healthcare system to the school system to the diverse fabric of modern society. LBJ didn't achieve everything he dreamed of, but his ambition set a standard for what government could do for better or worse. So here's my question for you. If another president today announced a new Great Society, an enormous plan to erase poverty and inequality, would you support it? Or do you think Johnson's experiment was a warning that big government dreams come with big consequences? Tell me in the comments. History isn't just about the past, it's a mirror reflecting who we are today. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.